Staff brought a vaccination policy to council back on Monday of the previous week, and council wasn't comfortable with the vaccination policy as written. We thought that we should be exploring a mandatory vaccination policy. So we asked staff to come back with a mandatory policy, and to that end, we had a special council meeting on Friday. When staff came back with that mandatory policy, it came with some numbers that we were privy to hear in closed session, and it was quite surprising just how many unvaccinated staff we actually have. I think that was a bit of a surprise and a bit of a wake-up call. So I can't talk about what we talked about in closed session, but we did have a very fulsome discussion on it, and we not only looked at the vaccinated versus unvaccinated, we also looked at the challenge of still running the town. So as everybody knows, it led to a decision of council to stay with the vaccination policy with some tweaks to it from the original one. And that is what we are trying to get implemented at this time.
One of the more recognizable quotes that I've seen you make is in making a comparison of what would happen here, of what happens if the snow, you have a massive snowstorm and the roads can't get plowed. If you want to kind of give me that example again.
Well, sure. If we don't have enough operators that are vaccinated and refuse to become vaccinated under mandatory policy, then we could well have snow on our roads sooner than later and no one to clear them. So we have to consider that. We also have to consider whether we have enough vaccinated firefighters to respond to fires in the area. So there's a lot of things. If we were only dealing with this on a moral and ethical basis, I'm not sure there's anyone on council that wouldn't be supportive of a mandatory policy. Mm-hmm. But we have to consider everything, and hence the daily testing for anybody that's coming into contact with people was one of the options that we were exploring. We are still working through this, and we are getting more information every day. And if the numbers come to a point where we could enforce it as a mandatory policy, we would definitely revisit it. I think we're getting a lot of feedback from the community, and the community has to realize the province mandated the double vaccinations to go into a place like the Summit Center. They did not mandate for staff to be vaccinated. Mm-hmm. So we're also, trying to get through this with some things being mandated by the province and some not. I would love for the Premier to just mandate double vaccinations for everyone. But until they do that, it puts us in a bit of an awkward position.
So that does beg the question, Karin, if the province or even the federal government mandates on a higher level, are we still going to run into this problem of staff that, again, not knowing their situation, if they refuse to be vaccinated, we're not going to have enough staff to run this community?
We could run into that because the province's rules, if those were the rules, would kick in immediately. But then we also probably would find some protection under an emergency act where we could go out. We have unionized employees, especially in roads. So, we're dealing with a collective bargaining unit too, as to what we can and can't do as far as, maybe going out and hiring contractors to cover things off. So, we've just got a lot of balls in the air right now to juggle. We realize that 80% of our community, if not more, are vaccinated and believe in the vaccination. And we would like those that are vaccine hesitant to get on board, so that we don't have to deal with this. But first and foremost, we are doing as much as we can to protect the community, each other. But we have a few balls to juggle while we're doing that.
Karin, I just, being careful not to get into personal details or conversations around the table, I'm just curious as to if you can possibly give us an idea of, is this due to vaccine hesitancy on the employee's behalf, or is this just sort of a slow uptick of getting the vaccine over time?
You know what, James, I think we're probably looking at some hesitancy, maybe some laziness, but I also believe we have some people who are absolutely not going to get vaccinated, even if the next step is they lose their job. And, you know, anybody who doesn't submit to the testing, they will be sent home. So, and just one other thing I want to mention, because I'm hearing about it. The town of Huntsville is not paying for these tests. We are not paying for any tests for any employees, because I'm hearing a lot of that.
I sense, and I know that you're probably frustrated with this, Karin, because I know that you're pro-vaccine. I know that you're pro, resolutions of COVID-19 precautions. And it seems like, from your point of view, at least, and possibly some other council as well, there is frustration about staff deciding not to get vaccinated.
Very much so. And you know, and I expect to hear from the community, and I'm okay with that. But some of the frustration the community is feeling on this should be directed towards those who are not getting vaccinated, as much as to those of us who are still trying to keep the town running and keep people safe. So the frustrating part is we just have people who won't get vaccinated, and often not for any good reason.
Karin, just to end out, just want to get an idea of what this new policy will look like now that it's not a mandatory vaccination. You were saying there is some sort of updates to the testing processes, things like that. If you can give me a quick rundown of what that could look like when it comes into place.
Yeah, anybody that works directly with the public, such as somebody working in the pool for swimming lessons or maybe a crossing guard, they will have to be tested daily at the beginning of their shift. Everyone else will have to be tested every 48 hours, and as long as they're not frontline. And we may revisit that at some point as well, and just go to absolute daily testing for everyone who comes into any of our facilities.